Can the power of Kuzco and Belle together battle against Blurple at its very best? Let's have a look at this quirky deck in this second installment of XMarksTheLore. Ha-ha! Howdy hi ladies and gentlemen, I'm the Exploder and welcome to XMarksTheLore, the Lorcana community-driven show where you send in your decks and this pirate captain will have a look at them on our journey to find the biggest and best booty all around the Azurite Sea and see if you can earn yourself a seal of passage. We've only had one deck so far and no passages yet, but you could be the next one. Specifically, this deck over here. KB, made by Jason. Thank you, Jason, for sending your deck in. KB is short for Kuzco Belle. So this is a Blurple deck based on Kuzco and Belle working together to create some unique Blurple synergies. We've got some quirky cards here, so let's have a look at the list quickly. We've got ourselves our standard 1-drops, only the one 1-drop in the deck, which is Diablo, strictly for card draw, I'm certain. The 2-drop Kuzco, as well as the 4-drop Kuzco. For Belle, we're only running the 5-drop moving damage Belle. And we've got some other quirky cards here, like a couple of copies of Into the Unknown. Sapphire Coil is here. All Thunned Out is here. It's a very unique build. A very unique build with some very quirky cards, and I like my quirks. But let's see how this plays out. Let's dive into a few games, do a bit of a test run, and see what we can do to bolster this up. Okie dokie, let's go in. KB versus KB in Ink Table. We do start off with double Dumbo, but I think that's a little bit too high. All Thunned Out is only going to be good if we actually have any cards on our turn 1. Want to keep Tipo. I don't think we need White Rose early. We'll keep one Dumbo, but we don't need Sven. So it's going to be a big mulligan on our side, mulliganing 5 cards. And that's a Youch, no 1-drop Diablo. Which, yeah, certainly you don't necessarily need the Diablo, but it helps having that 1-drop to kickstart your entire game plan. So now, regardless of what we do, we're already behind. So with that in mind, we're going to just ink Big Baby Belle, because there is no way we're going to be getting Belle out any earlier. They are going to whip out their Kuzco, so their draw engine line is already set up, whilst ours is so heavily behind. But there's our Diablo, fantastic. But we do have Ramp on our side, which can definitely help us out. Do we play Sapphire Coil? Not yet. In fact, in this case, Patcher's the odd one out, because we don't actually have any items apart from Sapphire Coil. And I think he's a bit of a dead play this early on, because we really want to go up to Dumbo and sort out our draw engine line and our evasive lineup. So let's just ink Patcher. We'll play out Tipo. Tipo's effect will then put the White Rose into the Inkwell as well, just to assist with our ramping. If we want to, we could even ramp with Tipo again next turn, just to give us that ramping boost. But we're going to see how we go. I think the earlier we can establish Dumbo, the better. And then we can just start going in here, controlling the board, getting a good sense of what we need, and we're good. Our opponent just puts out Patcher on curve, which is absolutely fine. But because we're ahead of our curve and we get Genie, this is perfect. Absolutely perfect now. So with where we're currently at, I think we can get away with not using Tipo. And now we play Genie on 4. And with Genie, we draw a card, we get our Hades. This is perfect for what we need. With that in mind, let's start controlling the board. We are going to give our opponent a card draw, which is fine from Diablo. But we need to start controlling the actual board presence itself. So giving our opponent a card just to make sure they can't quest for one, it's okay. It's kind of what we need to do. Our opponent inks on their side, plays out their Dumbo. Okay, they may get their Dumbo out before ours, but we do have our Genie out before them. Youch! Singing Into the Unknown onto our Tipo, which is kind of crazy. Again, you gotta take the AI with a pinch of salt. They make decisions that make me question my life sometimes. So this is a real puzzle as to why they decided to go with that. But hey ho, it's fine. Right. So in our hand, we do get out the Pleakley. And I don't think this is a good time. It might actually be a good time for Bruni. if we can consider getting him out, or we match their Dumbo with our Dumbo. What is our go-to game plan? We can't ramp up to Hades just yet, but at least we have Hades ready to get rid of their Dumbo, which is going to be an ideal play. Maybe even get rid of Apache because he is questing for 2. So with all this in mind, we're going to actually ink the Bleakly because we don't have any characters on board that we want to put into the inkwell. With 6 at our disposal, we will now play out Dumbo, and we might as well set up our Sapphire Coil. So if we set up Sapphire Coil now, whenever we put a card into our inkwell now, opponents get -2 attack, and we could just go nuts and just have a fun time. And we're not even going to attack anything at this rate, we're just going to quest the Genie and start regaining the lore we've missed out on early on to help bolster ourselves and build ourselves back up again. So the opponent looks scarier, but we can definitely get back in. There's our Rush Sven. Only deals 2 damage, which sucks. Like Sven, as much as I love his color scheme, and I like that he comes into play and does -3 attack onto a character, only dealing 2 damage is a bit of a youch, but we can potentially do some quirky plays here. So what we're going to do, we're going to actually ink our Diablo, which will trigger Sapphire Coil, and then Sapphire Coil will allow us to hit Kuzco. The reason why we're going to hit Kuzco is because we can't swing into Genie, and we have a way of getting rid of Dumbo this turn, because I'm just going to play out Hades. Hades targets Dumbo, Dumbo's out of the picture, we're fine. With that all done, we will then challenge with Dumbo, because he only quests for 1, into Kuzco. Again, our opponent gets the chance to draw a card, but that's absolutely fine. We're controlling board state. We quest for 2 with our Genie, we're good to go. The next thing we need to get rid of is Pacha. And we can also reliably get rid of Genie. Now here's the trick. You're damaging your own Genie. Are you going to play Belle to move 2 damage and get rid of Genie proper? Or are you just going to look at me and treat me like a very nice guy? There's the Belle. That's the combo they wanted. So our Genie's gone, which is a bit of an upset, but it's not a big problem. They didn't hit their Hades on curve like we did. Now we have our Belle. This changes a couple of things. We're going to challenge with Dumbo into their Genie, so that Genie takes 3 damage. Simple as. We take 2. But what do we have in our hand? We have our own Big Baby Belle. Big Baby Belle's going to come in. We're going to take this 2 damage. And we're going to move that 2 damage onto their Genie, so their Genie's gone. Fantabby-dozy. We've got 2 to play with. Not a lot of cards in our hand to be able to do anything with, but that's besides the point right now. I could ink either of these if we wanted to, but I think these are both utility pieces that we actually kind of want to keep right now. Especially since Sapphire Core only benefits us on our turn, there's no real point. Can Belle and Pacha get rid of Hades? No, so we're actually safe to quest with Hades, go up to 6. Now we're matching them. You see how they had the early advantage, but we've now caught up? This goes to show the deck actually has a nice little bit of potential when it comes to micromanaging and controlling the board state. Now this is where I believe, no, they're going to actually drop a Sven onto Hades. Sven gets rid of Hades and deals no damage over to Sven. Very interesting move. I was expecting another Big Baby Belle, but that's just me. Tipo then inks another card in the hand. Okay, not a big problem, not a big turn, and not a big worry for us. We get a second Bruni. This is interesting. We're going to actually ink a Bruni to give a character -2, and that -2 is going to go to Big Baby Belle. Then what we're going to do, we're going to actually play our own Sven. We're then going to drop the attack of Big Baby Belle by another wad. So now Belle can't even deal damage. And then we're going to challenge with Sven into Big Baby Belle. Big Baby Belle's gone. Sven has taken someone out, and we are good to go. With that in mind, we have 3 ink to play with. We're actually going to use the effect of Dumbo now to pay 1, draw a card, gain 1 lore, and we get Bleakly, which is absolutely fine, because if Sven just isn't putting in the work, we can always challenge something with Sven, play Bleakly, go into our inkwell, Sapphire Core triggers, and we can do some other wacky stuff, which is pretty darn nice. With that in mind, we can also quest with Belle, go up to 9, because they don't have the capacity to be able to clear our board. We're in a very good state. It's a slow, methodical Blurple versus Blurple game, but we are out-managing our opponent at this point. They can quest with Pacha if they so wanted to, but it doesn't look like they're going to. We're going to play another Sail the Azurite Sea for a card draw. Then they play their own Bleakly, put Tipo into the Inkwell. That's absolutely fine. Pleakley does have a very nice stat block. Look at what we now have got. We've got Into the Unknown. This is actually brilliant. So what we're going to be doing here is we could Into the Unknown onto their Sven to get rid of it, and that's not a bad move at all. Do we want to play it outright? I think we actually do. We screw Singing, play it outright, hit the Sven, Sven's in the Inkwell, gone out of our sights. So now we've got to worry about this board state, which I'm actually not that worried about. We're going to play our Bruni, so he's now out and can quest for 2 every turn, and if he does go away in any capacity, we draw a card anyway, so it's absolutely fine. And then we're going to do the ability of Dumbo. Gain 1, we get Gale, which could be interesting. And I'm not going to quest with Sven. Or do I quest with Sven? No, you know what? We quest with absolutely everybody, and we just bolster up our board. We go to 13 on the board versus their 8, which is a very nice start. So they go up to 9 with Pleakley, because they know they can't attack into anything. There's their Hades. They decide to hit our Big Baby Belle, which is a very fair move. I probably would have targeted Dumbo, because that's the only evasive character they have. There's their Gale, but we're not too worried. And look, we've got a second Dumbo now. That's perfect. Do we benefit from Sven in any capacity here? No, we don't, because Pleakley is way too thick. So this is what I think we do. We quest with Sven. I might even be tempted to quest with everybody here. Yeah, screw it, why not? Let's quest with Bruni, go to 16, and let's use the effect of Dumbo, quest to 17, and also draw a card at the same time. We get our own Pacha, which is perfect. So with our own Pacha and our own collection of cards that we can have fun with, this is what we'll do. We'll play Pleakley, and Pleakley will target Sven, putting Sven down there, -2 on whoever we want. Let's just pick Hades, why not? Then we'll also play out our other Dumbo, and ink our Gale, because why not? And then put another -2 on someone else. We don't care. And we effectively now threaten for game for next turn. They cannot clear this board with 1 card in their hand. They just can't. And they can't quest for game either, even if they try. So we've now put them in a very awkward spot where they either have to win, or we just outright body them in every way. And they only had a Sapphire Core in their hand. Great, we win. Don't even need to panic. Don't even need to worry about anything. We get another Sail the Azurite Sea if we wanted to, but we don't care. We're just going to start questing with absolutely everybody. That's how you win the game with this deck. It's interesting. If this deck is supposed to be focused around Kuzco and Belle, however, I'm not seeing a lot of Kuzco and Belle synergy, if I'm being honest. If we're going to go Kuzco and Belle, I think we can push this to the nth degree. And I think that's where we're going to go with the deck rebuild. At the moment, this just feels like a Blurple deck that's a little bit all over the place. It's not using a lot of the meta-compatible Blurple tech, but at the same time, I know we're mostly doing this as a themed thing between Kuzco and Belle, and there's not enough Kuzcos and not enough Belles to warrant making this tech work. Even then, the Belles are normally much better than the Kuzcos, especially in this color combination, but it's not impossible to take advantage of both. So let's finish off here, go back to Dreamborn, and let's see what we can do to bolster this deck a little bit. Okay, so we tested out KB, and testing out a deck that's 65 cards and 7 uninkables, it's hard to get into the deck. It's got some very quirky plays, and we've seen that in my testing. However, the thing I don't really like about this deck is about running it as 65 cards with 7 uninkables when you have the mindset of combining Kuzco and Belle, and you're not even running a lot of synergies between the Kuzco and Belles to take full advantage of them. Question marks me. It question marks me a lot. So I think the big plan is that we're going to go back into this deck build, rebuild it from the ground up, utilizing Kuzco and Belle at its finest, and building up from there. We don't have a concern on budget because KB is quite a pricey deck at 245 already, but we can have some inspiration. And this is where we're going to have another learning lesson with your boy right here. If you're ever looking at building your own quirky decks or your own quirky combo decks, and trust me, I'm that guy. I am very much that guy, and I highly encourage you do so. Here's the thing I recommend. If you're trying to make something like Blurple, for example, even if it's not like the meta build of Blurple, and you're putting your own twist on it, find a Blurple deck to base it off of, and then add your twist over it to make it yours. Let me give you an example here with the DLC Bologna deck from Lucas Marcellini. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, please let me know if I'm not. This deck went to DLC Bologna. This deck has 60 cards, 12 uninkables, so it is just where you want it. The curve, while in comparison to KB, the curve is going much more to the 2-3-4 line. The curve with the Lucas deck is more so focused about the 4-5 line. And the reason why we're mostly looking at 4 and 5 on the curve with Blurple is because Blurple doesn't really care a lot about their lower end. Most of their lower end is for 2-drops, because for 2-drops consists of most of your ramping options, aka Tipo and Sail the Azurite Sea. That's where that mostly comes from. Outside of that, 4-drop onward, that's where you get Dumbo, that's where you get Iago, that's where you get Belle, Hades, Ursula, Monstro, Elsa, TikTok. There's a lot of monsters, creatures, tech that you can have on that top end that rely on that top end, but you're not too worried about getting to that top end because you're Blurple, you're ramping all the time. So use that ramp engine to your advantage. Use the tech that's being used in these DLC high meta level decks to your advantage to make your own quirky decks. Look at the engines, look at their curves, look at what they're building to help their engines go brr, and then adapt those engines to make your game plan work for the better. I hope that comes across well, but let's use this as an example to improve on KB. With the deck builder, we're going to start removing cards left, right and center. There's a lot of cards we're going to take out. Sapphire Core's immediately coming out. It's just not putting in the work at all. Because Sapphire only triggers on your turn, that means that you need to take advantage of the minus attacks on your turn as soon as they start blocking. And as you can tell in the testing, even though we had Sapphire Core out, we only really used it once to get rid of one threat one time, and it's just not consistent enough to warrant putting all those resources in on a 2-drop that's only ever going to work that one time, half the time. So let's just get rid of it and refine it a little bit more for our 2-drops. Everybody's Got a Weakness is one of my favorite Amethyst cards. But in a deck like this, where you're not exactly keeping a lot of damage on your characters, Everybody's Got a Weakness is sadly a weakness in the deck. So let's take it out for now. Then we move on to All Thunned Out, and I get it, All Thunned Out features Kuzco, so maybe that's why we want to play it, but it's a bad 1-drop, and the fact that you put a chosen character of yours into your Inkwell face down exerted, you want this on your Pleakley because you actually get a body on the board. You do not want to see this in an action, because the action, you -1, use the action to -1 yourself to bolster yourself up for the next turn. So you're purposely punishing yourself, which is not good. While Pleakley is at least at a neutral level, because you get a body that puts another body in your Inkwell that could be damaged, but could just not be putting in the work, but could only be questing for 1. You see what I mean there? So, All Thunned Out, sadly, is going to come out. Next is Sven. I like the idea of incorporating Sven into a deck like this, but again, I don't think Sven's being used to his full advantage. And the problem I have with Sven, he is a 5-cost character that only deals 2 damage when he comes out. I know he lowers an opposing character's attack by 3, but unless he's able to get rid of that character, you're pumping in multiple resources just to get rid of one thing. And at this stage of the game, you want to be getting rid of those resources right off the bat if you can. So sadly, as much as I like him, Sven's going to come out. Then we move on to Kuzco the Board Royal. I get it, it's a Kuzco in your Kuzco and Belle deck, but he's one of the weakest Kuzcos. He's a 4-cost 1/3 for 1. When you play this character, you may return chosen character, item, or location with cost 2 or less to their player's hand. Cost 2 or less is not good, and unless you're going against aggro, this is never going to hit any of the big targets you really want to hit. So even in your Blurple mirror matchup, you're not hitting Dumbo, you're not hitting Hades, you're not hitting Genie, you're not hitting Big Belle. Any of those big playmakers by the time Blurple has at least a little bit of ramp on their system, even something like Pleakley that has a 3/4 body, doesn't get hit by this Kuzco. And on turn 4, you just get a character out that has 1 attack, 3 willpower, and hopefully gets rid of 1 thing. Doesn't quite make sense. I know you can return your chosen character or your chosen item back into your hand, but it's slow, and it just dramatically slows down the deck. So as much as it's a Kuzco card, we're going to be removing it for now. I'm 50-50 on Bruni. I like him as a character. I think having a 2/2 for 2 on turn 4 is absolutely fine. But if you're after your aggro tech and after your draw engine tech, there are going to be better options out there. There are even better options for evasives if you want to take the evasive route. So I think for now we're actually going to take Bruni out and reincorporate some other cards in our 4-drops, because he stands out a little bit, and not in a good way. Parcher was an interesting choice, and the fact that Parcher is a 0/4 that gains an extra 1 if you have an item in play, and you also gain an extra 1 if you have a location in play, is very interesting. The problem is, you only ran 1 item at 3 of, so the chances of getting your +1 lore at the start of your turn with your Sapphire Core was dramatically lowered, and on top of that, you ran 0 locations. So you were never really going to take advantage of anything Parcher was going to bring to the table unless you were exceedingly lucky on your card draws or very well on your curve. And even then, again, when you hit the 3, 4, 5 level of dropping characters down, you want these characters to have an impact or have good stat lines or be able to combat against what your opponent is bringing out at this point. Parcher does nothing apart from Quest for 2, and as far as I'm aware, this isn't aiming to be aggro. This is leaning towards the line of being more control or tempo, like other Blurple decks. So Parcher stands out a little bit too hard. We're going to take him out. I understand it with the White Rose. You play him, you get 1 lore. It's the GOAT. Literally, the Merlin GOAT equivalent for the current core constructed lineup. The problem I have, however, is that you're basically just getting a 3/3 stat block out. And if you want a very good 3/3 stat block, there are better cards at this cost that can do a lot more. Especially if this is going to be a deck themed around Kuzco and Belle. You have a very specific Belle that would love to be in this spot. Especially when you're running your big Bells, you can get the big Belle out much easier. You pretty much know where I'm hinting at with this. We're taking White Rose out. Then we have Gale. I get it. Gale Quest for 2, if he's banished in a challenge, it comes back to your hand. You're never going to be challenging with Gale. Your opponent's going to look at Gale and either find a way to bounce it back or get rid of it with fiber cannons. It's just a target waiting to be rid of, and not in a good way. Gale's going to come out. I'm sorry. And then the rest of the deck is pretty darn okay. We've still got Into the Unknown. We're just going to raise Into the Unknown to 4 copies. So this is going to be your go-to way of removing a lot of problematic characters. Don't sleep on it. Run it at 4. If you're putting characters in your opponent's inkwell, they cannot get them back in any capacity, which is fantastic. You want this. The same thing with Hades. If we're going to run Hades, slap him up a 4. He's a big main boy card anyway. And if we're going to be adding in some ramp tech to make this work a little bit stronger, of course you're going to be getting to 7 relatively well. And if you're on curve and you're dropping 7 as early as, let's say, turn 4, turn 5, you're getting rid of their big boys like it was nothing. So yeah, slap Hades up to 4. Let's go. And with everything at 4, we now have 40 cards, 8 uninkables, and this is already looking like a fantastic base work for a deck in general. Issues we have now is just bolstering this up, and I think in order to bolster it, we need to start putting in some quirky characters and lineups, but try and still keep the theme of Kuzco and Belle as best as we can. So I've got some ideas. The first thing we're going to look at is our 1-drops. Only having Diablo is absolutely fine. I think Diablo is a fine card to keep in. However, we need a way to deal with aggro very early on, which this deck could potentially struggle against. So let's have a look at our options. Our number 1 options, probably, are going to either be Rafiki, which will gain Challenger 3 whenever we attack something, which is fantastic, or Royal Guard, where whenever you draw a card, Royal Guard will get Challenger +1, and that includes when you draw for turn. So after you play Royal Guard and draw for turn, he's already a Challenger 1, becoming a 2/2. Now, for the sake of this and the fact that we don't really have a budget for this deck, we're going to slap in 4 Rafiki. So now having Diablo and Rafiki in our bottom line is all we need. something to get rid of things, something to help us draw cards. Now to have a look to bolster the actual Belle and Kuzco parts of the deck. Having a look at the Belle options that we have a nice variety of different Belles that you can run with here. Now, the item-based Belle where you can play her for free, we're probably not going to worry about her or a lot of the other Belles in general. However, there are some quirky things we can do. The 3/3 move 1 damage Belle we are definitely putting in. Maybe not a 4, but I'd say at least a 3, maybe a 2 of. And the main reason we do that is because if we have that one little bit of damage on us, and we can move that damage to get rid of a 1/4 Daisy, get rid of a 0/4 Little John, get rid of something where we're able to deal a little bit of damage but not quite clear it, Belle comes into play, moves that damage, gets rid of that character, everything's good to go. That's what we want to see. But because this is a Kuzco and Belle themed deck, here's an idea that I've actually got. We're going to consider putting in a few copies of Clarabelle. Yeah, that Belle. Because technically, Clarabelle's got Belle in the name of, and it's a quirky tech piece you may not have considered. But this Clarabelle's really nice. It's a 4-cost, 3/3 for 2 support character, and your other characters with support get +1 attack. Which could be quirky. It does mean we're not running a lot of other support-based characters, but a 3/3 support request for 2 is a fantastic addition, and if we do want to swing into anything, I mean, putting 3 attack on your 0/1 Diablo so it can potentially get rid of something and you draw a card, or putting it on your Kuzco so your Kuzco now turns into a 4/2, that's a win. We're going to put a couple of these in, but I mean only a couple. We don't want to see her all the time, but at least she's an inkable option and a quirky choice if we do need to go for game. As for your Kuzcos, yeah, the 2-drop Kuzco is probably the main one we're going to be running here to really take advantage of the KB tech. Kuzco's Selfish Emperor could be a quirky tech piece. When you play the character, you may put chosen item or location into its player's inkwell face down exerted. This is fantastic because then that screws up our opponent if they are running an abundance of items and locations. May not necessarily be in the mirror matchup, but it is exceptionally helpful for other matchups, which is very good. And if we do just have a lot of spare ink running, you pay 4, everything gets resist 1, I think that's a fantastic card to consider putting in. Not a lot of, but at least a little bit of, so maybe you slap in a couple of 6-drop Kuzcos. So comparing things to where we are right now, we're not done with the deck build yet, we've got 9 cards left to slot in, but if you look at our curve now we're still very 2-3-4 heavy, so we can look at our 5-6-7s if we so wish, but we are going into this deck with a slightly different game plan than we are with generic Blurple. There is one card that we definitely need to consider, and that card we need to consider is Hypnotic Strength. The 2-cost Amethyst action that has draw a card, chosen character gains Challenger +2 this turn. It gives you that little bit of card draw, but because you also get Challenger, it means for your Diablos, your Kuzcos, your Tipos, they're able to swing into things if you don't have anything else on the board to be able to help you with board control, which is desperately what we need right now, because currently our only other forms of board control are in our top end. So let's fix it. I don't think we put a lot in. In fact, you know what? We're going to put Hypnotic Strength at 4. We're going to re-look at the cards we've added. This Belle Untrained Mystic that I currently have as a 3 of, I'm actually going to drop down to 2, just to balance out the load a little bit. And then there's one card we can add in that will just put a cap to everything that we are at. I'm very, very certain we can splash in the 5-drop Rush Evasive Elsa as a 4-drop, and this card will help you out as well. Elsa and Belle working together is an extremely good tech, and being able to exert one of your opponent's characters to be able to take advantage of them is just, without saying, a brilliant thing to do. She comes into play with Russian Evasive, she can whack into Dumbos, she can whack into Genies, she can whack into pretty much anything you need her to, and does the job. You want this Elsa in your deck, trust me. And with that in mind, we only really have 2 slots left in the deck, and having a look at the list that we currently have, we're going to bolster up our top end, because at the moment our very high top end is consistent of Belle, Elsa, Kuzco and Hades, and I think whilst we're looking at Elsa's, We have enough uninkable slots to warrant this. Let's just say screw it and slap in 2 copies of the legendary Elsa. The legendary 8-drop 4/6 for free. You exert 2 chosen characters and they can't ready up a star their next turn. This is how we go for game. You exert 2, have Elsa out on board, quest for free, you have your top end all managed out. Now your opponent has to start sweating because you are playing a big boy game.
Chunky!
And there we go with the deck build. So we started with the 65 card KB deck from Jason. Now let's have a look at my deck. The deck I've built known as Blurple, Kuzco and Belle's Frozen Frenzy. This is a very interesting build. Character-wise, we drop from 51 to 48, but 48 is still a considerable amount. We've added in things like Hypnotic Strength and maxed out Into the Unknown in order to help us with those pesky scenarios. And we have a nice flow of characters from the 1-drops all the way up to our top end to help us control the board and kick some serious butt. I'm looking forward to trying this out. Let's dive back into the testing and see how we go. Here we go. We're going to be running my version of the deck versus Jason's KB, just to see what the comparison is like. So our starting mulligans, we already start off with our 1-drop Rafiki, which is fantastic, but we don't have a single bit of ramp. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to hard go for it. We're just going to get rid of all the other cards, mulligan 6, and let's see if we get our ramp. There's Pleakley, and there's Tipo. We're done. We've got our ramping options early on. We do have 2 bells, but we're not too worried about that. We can make up the difference. So, to start things off, we're going to ink 1 big baby bell and play out a Rafiki. We have a terrifying big baboon boy ready to bop anything that comes out that's on the board. Even if it's just a Diablo, which our opponent plays, that's absolutely fine. We can get rid of Diablo, establish a board state, and start bashing like a mad lad. We're not going to play out Kuzco this early because we want to ramp with Tipo. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to ink our Kuzco in order to play our Tipo. When we play Tipo, we then have Tipo's effect. But which one do we put into our inkwell? We put in the 1 card we cannot take advantage of this early on, Hades. It gets an uninkable out of our hands, and quite frankly, we're not going to be playing this Hades this early on. So why not? That is a scary bird, but the scary bird can't do now. Quest for 1 with Rafiki, pass the turn. We are starting off very, very strong. Let's see what the opponent with KB brings to the table. They bring out their Kuzco on turn 2. So yes, they get their draw advantage, but we get our ramp advantage. And next turn, especially now that we get a second Pleakley, now we have options. Now we can decide, do we want to ramp up to Big Bell? Probably not, because we don't have anything we can really damage to take advantage of the Big Bell. So what we're going to do instead, we're going to ink 1 of the Pleakleys and play out our Genie. So now we can take advantage of the card draw. We draw into a second Genie. This is absolutely beautiful. This means we can warrant inking the second Pleakley next turn, and depending on what happens on the board, we can either swing in with a Genie, play Bell, move the damage, or play a second Genie just to draw a card and keep our hand state. So in this scenario, we can pretty much go about it as we want. I'm going to challenge Rafiki into Diablo, just to make sure Diablo's off board. Gives our opponent a card, but I'm not really too worried about it. Quest with Tipo for 2. And now we have ourselves a gay old time. Yes, I just referenced the Flintstones.
Yabba dabba doo!
Okay, opponent's turn. They only have a Kuzco in play. They play out Gale on turn 3. And we're not worried about it. Gale is a very simple character to get over. And we have our big Elsa. A little bit too early to see that, but hey ho, it is what happens. Now here's the thing, we don't have a lot of damage on the board, so there's no real point playing out our big baby bell. So what could we do in this scenario? We could obviously play out our Pleakley to ramp up closer to Elsa if we so wished. They don't have any way of attacking evasives at this moment in time. So hear me out, we're actually going to ink the bell because we want to keep Pleakley for that cheeky bit of ink gain when we're ready to do so to ramp that a little bit more. And we're actually going to play out our Genie to draw an extra card. We get Into the Unknown. That is beautiful. So now that we have Into the Unknown, we can take advantage of that when we're ready to really start controlling the board proper. We're going to challenge Rafiki into Kuzco. So then Kuzco is gone. And we're all good to go there. You get a card, but I'm really not too worried about it. I'm a request of everybody else, so Tipo for 1, Genie for 2, take us to 5 lore, we are in the lead, and look at our board state versus KB's board state. KB has a quest for 2 Gale and nothing else, and we can just tackle into Gale with Rafiki, do a cheeky trade, and we're all good to go. We don't really worry about it, and look, now they've played out their Genie on curve on turn 4, and with their Genie out, we can now do Into the Unknown, and we get our Elsa. Oh, this is a thing of beauty. We're going to sing Into the Unknown with one of our Genies, and this Into the Unknown is going to hit their Gale, just to get their Gale out of the way, so we can get their Genie whenever we're ready to do so, which, ironically, is right now. So we're going to play Elsa, we're going to exert the Genie, and we're going to challenge our Genie and our Elsa into their Genie to clear them off the board. We could have done that a little bit differently, in fairness. I could have played Elsa first in order to exert Genie, then sung Into the Unknown and done things different, but hey ho, misplays happen all the time. I'm not trying to portray myself as a perfect player, it happens. But look at our board state now. All of these characters, all things ready to go. Our opponent has absolutely nothing, and now we're questing up to 7. We are establishing such a strong board state, it's kind of freaking nuts. So, what's our opponent now going to do? They're on 6 ink, they draw into a Genie and draw a card, and they play out a Tipo in order to ink up to 7. Absolutely fine, but look at what we can now do on our next turn. We can really punish them. So now that we have everything we need to do the shift, we will now shift Elsa onto Elsa, play her effect, exert both Tipo and Genie, and this is what we do. We sing our second copy of Into the Unknown on the Genie in order to hit their Genie to knock it out of the way. My god, I'm being blinded by the sun all of a sudden! Oh, my eyes! I'm okay. No sunburn for me today. No one's going to ruin my casual look whilst I'm playing card games. What? Even pirates wear cardigans. And with that in mind, look at what we now have. We now have an established board. We can trade Rafiki with their Tipo. We don't worry about it. Take that free damage. The child is gone. We may lose the monkey, but when we quest huge. And we quest to 8, we quest to 10, we quest to 13. I know we don't have cards in our hand, but who needs cards in their hand when you're literally on the verge of winning the game? Because what, you got 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 on the Elsa and 2 Genies alone. Our opponent really needs to do something to get rid of our board or control the board. There's Into the Unknown, and it hits Tipo. Into the Unknown would have actually stopped our plans, and they hit Tipo instead. We draw into our own Kuzco, but by that time, it's fine. We're just going to casually quest the game. Look at this. Couple of changes here and there, and suddenly we've built a deck that flows, has a really nice construction from low end to top end, gives us options for whether we want to ink, whether we want to put something into our inkwell or not. We had control options by playing more copies of Into the Unknown, so it was more reliable to be getting into our hand at the right time. This is adding that little bit of meta Blurple to make our quirky Blurple that little bit better. So with all of that being done, we've tested the decks, we've had a look at what I would do with the deck if I was to build it, but let's break it down. Look at KB and help Jason with some ideas as to where we can go with the deck in the future. First things first, it's a Kuzco and Belle deck where you don't have a lot of Kuzcos and you don't have a lot of Belles. In this color scheme, you don't exactly have the best access to the best Kuzco and Belle matchups that you can. If you really wanted to do a Kuzco and Belle themed deck, I'd highly recommend looking into Emerald and Amethyst, where you have a lot more quirkier options and a lot more options for your Kuzcos and your Belles. And on top of that, you can also add in some more Emperor's New Groove tech by adding in Wrong Lever and Pull the Lever, 2 cards that I desperately think are being slept on right now, but that deck can definitely take advantage of. But with that to one side, your 1-drops lacking. Only having Diablo as your 1-drop is a bit of an upset. Consider Rafiki. If you don't like the idea of Rafiki, maybe even consider putting in Basil for 1-drop the Quest for 1 with support in Sapphire. That can also bolster up your Diablo attacking, your Kuzco attacking, your other attacking characters. It's a fantastic option that is being heavily slept on in some decks, so consider that one. Gale just doesn't really put in the work for me. I feel that Gale is a bit of a baity card. You want your opponent to get rid of Gale, so Gale comes back into your hand, but then they'll look at you and just go, okay, into the unknown, fire the cannons, find some other way to get rid of Gale where it doesn't end up in your hand anymore, and then you're thinking, oh, my Quest for 2 is gone. And this is the main thing that I have with this KB deck in general that sums it all up. It's a little bit all over the place. You've got tech that relies on damage and moving that damage to control the board, but then you have a little bit of ramp, but then you have a little bit of control via just putting them into the inkwell. It is all over the place and it's not synergizing that well. On top of that, you've got Dumbo, which is a fantastic card for obviously drawing cards, gaining ink, when you only have to pay 1, which is brilliant in a deck like this, do not get me wrong, but you don't have any other evasives to really help with drawing extra cards outside of Genie. So again, in this color scheme, even adding in the 5-drop Elsa, after Elsa's come in, exerted, rushed into something, the turn afterwards, Elsa's just questing for 1 all the time, or attacking something for 2. So at least then you have 2 characters to gain 2 lore and draw 2 cards on your turns as long as you have your Dumbo out to add that little bit of synergy. And even having cards like All Thunned Out is... it's not a great card, and because that's taking up your slots on your 1-drops, that's stopping you from being able to play things like Basil and Rafiki, so it doesn't quite work out as well, so you want to rely on that tech with your Pleakley, so you have a body instead, and just helps you out that little bit more. So with all that in mind, Jason, I hope this video helps you out with deck construction in the future. I like your deck, but it's just missing a few techie quirks to really bolster it and push it to the nth degree. So with that in mind, you probably guessed it, there will be no seal of passage for you today. But consider the criticisms that I've given you. Consider the options that we've gone over in my version of the deck that I'm going to send you to have a look into what you can do to create some alternatives for what you're currently running with. The quest continues to find our first one, and that first one could be you. Do you have a deck similar to Jason's that you want to see on the show for me to criticize and to help you deck build, if there's even help to be had in the first place? If you have a deck that you want me to critique here on the show, be sure to send in your decks to XMarksTheLore@gmail.com. That's XMarksTheLore@gmail.com. Send in your decks, any explanations you have as to your philosophies or how the deck works, any videos or voice notes that you want to add on top to add your 2 cents so you're included in the video. This video is for you guys, so by all means, if you want me to help dive into your deck as much as I can, give me as much information as you can give me so I can help you out and help build your decks, no matter how quirky they are, be the quirkiest but best decks they could possibly be. And even if you're not too convinced about sending in a deck yourself, consider sending this video, and even then, the entire channel, to your friends, other Lorcana creators, or other Lorcana buddies at your league nights, so that we can bolster the crew and get more people involved. If you liked what I did with the deck, or if you think the KB could be improved by other means, let us know down in the comments section below, and be sure to also like and subscribe so that you don't miss out on some more episodes of XMarksTheLore in the future. Ladies and gentlemen, that is it for me today. I'm going to wear my cardigan with pride and go back out on the high seas where it's a little bit nippy today and obviously quite sunny as well. I almost got blinded back there. I'll be seeing you next time for some more Lorcana action. In the meantime, set sails, weigh anchor, and I'll be seeing you on the Azurite Sea. Until next time, folks, yar!